Hi everyone, welcome to Fuel Your Wellness. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Ashley Grant. I am a registered dietitian, a wellness enthusiast, as well as a mom. I am someone who helps individuals ditch diet culture, use food as medicine so that they can ditch medications, and manage and prevent disease, as well as become plant-based pros and raise their kids healthier. I am really excited to be talking about one of my favorite topics within nutrition, which is mindful eating. So I'm going to give 11 actionable tips that you can implement into your own life today to be more mindful while you eat. Now, keep in mind, it doesn't mean every single tip is going to be for you. They might not be applicable for your lifestyle, or they just might not resonate, and that's okay. Before we get into the tips, I do want to talk about what are the benefits of mindful eating? Like, why are we trying to strive for more mindful meals? And so I like to go over the top 3 tips of mindful eating, or the top 3 benefits of mindful eating, which are, firstly, digestion. I think it's so important to talk about because gut health is a really hot topic right now. And often when gut health is discussed, it's, the conversations around supplements and what to add to your diet, what to eat. But I think it's so important to discuss how we eat, and being more mindful can definitely improve gut health and digestion. So that's the first benefit that I think is really helpful, and I think a lot of people will need that in their lives, because I think we all need a little bit better digestion. And the second benefit of mindful eating would be to just essentially be more aware of hunger and satiety cues, meaning that you overeat less frequently. Again, something we all have done or all do from time to time, some more than others. So if this is something that you struggle with often, this mindful eating habit can be really powerful for you. And my favorite tip, or my favorite benefit, is actually enjoying food more. I think that's so important, because when we are just eating fast, when we say scarfing it down or inhaling our food, we're not really paying attention to the flavors and the texture of the food, and we don't actually fully enjoy that experience. And sometimes that's actually why we reach for seconds, is so we can enjoy that experience a second time through, since we didn't the first time. So I love those 3 benefits. I think they're important to note. So digestion, overeating less frequently, and of course, enhanced enjoyment of food. So if those 3 things are what you want to focus on and work on for your health, then stay along for these 11 tips that I'm going to be giving you next. So tip number 1 is change the scenery. Now, this is something that anyone can do. Whether you're at home, sometimes at work you can do it, and even other places if you're on the go. But in your home, let's think of it there first. Changing the scenery can be pretty easy as long as you have more than one room in your home, or if it's summertime, you can go outside. But the reason changing the scenery is so helpful is because if you're someone who does overeat often or is mindless while eating, when you start to go in a different place when you eat, you're reminded of, oh yeah, the reason I'm in this new place is because I'm trying to change my habit of eating fast or eating mindlessly. So that's one of the reasons it's helpful. The other reason is often we eat in the kitchen or where the food is. And if we're stepping away from the room where the food is located, then we are less likely to be focused on, okay, I want seconds, or reaching for seconds right away, or adding more to our plate before we even finish, things like that. So also, the more relaxing the scenery, the better. So this might look like, a room that you have your library of books in, or plants, or your cat, to sit on your lap, whatever that looks like for you. And like I said before, outside is always an option. Of course, right now in New England, it's cold, so probably not something that you'll catch me doing, eating outside right now, but in the summer and the spring, I love eating outside. I think it's such a nice way to incorporate nature as well as eating. And so that's another reason it can actually help with digestion, because the calmness of the setting can really relax the gut. instead of keeping it tense and stressed. So also within changing the scenery, if you choose somewhere similar to the relaxing setting, but if you specifically choose somewhere that you don't have a phone, a TV, a computer, it's going to be better for mindful eating because there's less distractions. You know, when we have our phone in our hand and we're focused on whatever we're scrolling on our phone with, then of course we're going to actually be able to focus on our food. Same with even the TV, with maybe the news. It's easy to get, stressed from that, or stressed from, our computer with our work stuff on there. So it's really helpful for all three of these reasons. Now, tip number 2 is to sit while eating. And while this seems kind of obvious, it's not, because I often see it in myself, in my friends, in my family, as well as clients, where a lot of us are standing while we're eating. And this might not look like eating an entire meal standing, but what I call BLTs, while cooking, bites, licks, and tastes, while we're cooking, preparing food, that is something we don't even take into account because we're standing, we're kind of like walking around, we're not really mindfully eating that. And so it's something that we can kind of get excess of if we do that often. Another reason, standing is not the best thing for us when we're eating is because, again, going back to that benefit of mindful eating, digestion, it's actually not great for our digestion to stand while eating. Because if you think about it, it makes sense, right? When we stand, our muscles are being tensed in our core, our trunk to hold us up. Even if we're not intentionally doing it, you don't have to be like, flexing or anything like that. Just simply standing, we are utilizing those muscles. As well as the blood is flowing to our legs. So if our blood is flowing to the legs and our muscles are tensing, our gut is going to be a mess. So if you have a lot of gas, bloating, any digestive issues often after eating, then instead of just considering what you're eating, try also considering, how am I eating? Am I eating standing? Am I eating mindlessly? Am I eating fast? Those things can impact you almost more than what you're eating. Of course, what you're eating can also. So definitely pay attention to both. But the other thing is, when we're sitting, we are getting that blood flow to the belly. We can relax the belly, and it can be just such a more pleasant experience on the digestive tract. So definitely important. Within this tip, I always like to also go over eating while driving, because it is, a place where you're sitting, but it's still not mindful because, of course, you're focused on the road. You're probably not even getting everything into your mouth. It's probably falling all over your lap. So not only is it unpleasant, messy, and something that you're not even focusing on, it's also causing our sympathetic nervous system to activate. So that's that stress response, especially in New England, the drivers here. But even on the most simple of roads, without a lot of traffic, we're still not at ease when we're driving, because we're on alert just in case, something were to happen, like a deer or a car cutting you off. We have to be on alert. So we're not relaxed. And so that parasympathetic nervous system, when we are relaxed, that's our rest, digest, and heal nervous system. And that's what we want to activate when we are eating. So that would look like, sitting. And again, changing the scenery can also help with that, with the relaxing setting. So tip number 3 is you choose utensils wisely. Now this means things like your spoons, your forks, kind of choosing smaller options when possible. But also one of my favorites is chopsticks. If you're someone who doesn't know how to use chopsticks, it's even better of a tip for you, because you're probably going to be really slow at it, right? I am very slow at using chopsticks, although I'm getting better, which for mindful eating probably isn't a good thing. But it helps when you're slow, right? Because slow equals more mindful. And chopsticks can help because, again, when you're eating really slowly, you are just focusing more on eating, what you're eating, the texture, the flavor. So the enjoyment's there, the digestion is better, you're not overloading your gut extremely fast. So really all these tips can be, all the benefits are really found within this tip especially. But even spoons, I love to use it's almost like a baby-sized spoon for when I eat ice cream. Because anything indulgent, I like to use that small spoon for, because essentially, if you use a big spoon for just a half a cup, which is usually the serving size of ice cream, you're gonna eat that ice cream in like 2 bites, right? It's gonna be gone. But if you are using a small spoon, not only are you eating, kind of better for your gut, you're not overloading it all at once, especially cold, you don't wanna do that, but also you're enjoying it more, right? Like I get many, many, many bites from that small spoon versus a big spoon. I'll get 2 bites and it's gone, it's over. The enjoyment is over. And we want to extend that pleasure. That's part of that third benefit I talked about before, which is enhanced enjoyment of food. So I think that's really important to know, especially if you're doing something indulgent. Try to use like that smaller spoon, smaller utensil. It really will help. I promise you, it will make a difference. Now, number 4, avoid eating out of boxes, bags, packages, which normally I'm not someone who likes to start a tip with like a negative word, avoid, but I do think it's the best way to kind of describe this one. Another way to say it, you could say transfer your food to a plate, a jar, something more aesthetically pleasing even, because again, for the aesthetic reasons, it looks nicer, it's prettier, but also when you think about eating out of a bag, a box, a package, it's easy to eat the whole thing, right? We've all been in that experience before, where we just are eating out of the bag. We don't know how much we ate. Even if we don't eat the whole thing, we don't know how much we did eat. And then also, if we eat the whole thing, it's not even making us feel full because it's not really food. It's a packaged processed product. So of course, the more we eat out of bags, boxes, and packages, the more we eat more processed food. And then of course, it prevents us from really getting full. Chips are actually made so that you can eat the whole bag without feeling full. So that hunger satiety feeling isn't going to really be satisfied because chips are just small little crunchy pieces of potato instead of actually eating a potato itself, where you get a lot of volume and a lot more nutrients as well, and less of the negative nutrients in there, like the saturated fat and things like that. So number 5 is to put away extras. This tip actually is one that I implemented a few years ago when I did a home retreat with a client. And essentially what we did was we cooked together like a nice plant-based meal. Then we plated our food with that, the food we just cooked. And then we put away the extra food that wasn't going to be on our plate. So we put it away in packaged Tupperware for, like the next day and maybe the day after that, and then put it in her fridge. Then we went outside. So we did implement another tip there of changing the scenery as well. So we're kind of implementing a few things here, but at the same time, when we went outside and we ate our food, we stayed out there for a little while. And then when we came back in, it wasn't, the thought about seconds or, getting extras or getting something else wasn't really there. And she mentioned to me that was the most helpful thing, putting away the food, because often if it's out, especially family style, it's easy to just reach and scoop another portion onto your plate. Like I said before, sometimes even before you even finish what's on your plate, you scoop more onto there. So it's really helpful to start trying to do that. And the other benefit of that is you get leftovers, for the next day or the day after that even sometimes. So it also helps with a little meal prep in there as well. Now, tip number 6 is use smaller plates or bowls. And this is similar to the utensils, but as far as the plate or bowl goes, it's easy to load our plates too much when we use a big bowl or plate. Because if we look, like I always give the example of a fancy restaurant. I will never forget going and getting this huge square white plate, and the food on it was just all in the center. And they garnished it, made it look pretty and everything, but it was barely any food. And I was kind of questioning, where's the rest of my food? Where's the rest of the meal? Because most of the plate was empty, more than what the actual food was on there. So for me, that is something I already felt hungry, even just looking at it, like knowing I'll probably be hungry after eating this. Whereas if you take a small plate and put that same exact portion onto that, it's going to look more full. So it's kind of like the portion perception changes because it seems like, your plate's more full. So using those small plates can make a huge difference, or bowls. I usually only use those, and the only time I use the big ones is if the other ones are in the dishwasher. So it really helps if you start just using the small plates and filling it up to its max capacity, because that's, we want to use the most of our space, and we want to see lots of color and, different ingredients on our plate. We don't want to see empty space. So try to minimize empty space and minimize the plate size if you can, if that's possible. Now also, the next tip number 7, is something I recommend all the time, and that is to take a 15-minute pause after eating, or sometimes even while you're eating. So again, I will say I am a fast eater. I am a recovering fast eater, I should say. So this 15-minute pause for me, when I am able to, is really helpful because, again, something you might know, something you might not know, it takes the gut about 15 minutes, maybe 20 for some people, to tell the brain, hey, I'm full. So if you are not waiting that time, you can easily overeat, get seconds, thirds, get a dessert, a snack. And so if you are someone who eats within 5 minutes, which I sometimes do, especially feeding my son, I'm like scarfing mine down, while he's eating. And so it is something that we all have to pay attention to. But if you are eating fast, at least give yourself another 10 minutes or so after you eat to just sit there, kind of take it in. And if you're still hungry, then go for more, of course. But if it's something that you realize, actually, I was only getting more because I thought I was full, I thought I was hungry, but you're actually full after that time passes, then it's something that you just might recognize, hey, I'm a fast eater, and I want to start being more mindful and give myself some time to really fully process the food. So now tip number 8 is to use your non-dominant hand. This one's kind of fun. It's like a fun experiment to try. So especially with snacks, it's a fun experiment to, take your favorite snack, try to put it in a bowl on your, for me it would be my left side because I'm right-handed. So for me it would be that. For you, whatever, dominant side you have, do the opposite. And try to eat your snack with that hand and see how you do. It's probably going to be easier doing that than with a utensil. That's kind of like coloring with your other hand. But in general, the reason this works, even if it's coloring or writing your name, is because we have to be slower and more intentional when we are doing something with our non-dominant hand, because it doesn't come second nature. Like with my right hand, I can, write my name really quickly. With my left, I would kind of be like holding it like a child and going really slow and intentional to try to really make sure it's legible. And same thing can go with food, is just, slowly eating, making sure, or if it's with a spoon or a fork, making sure everything gets into your mouth properly, it's not getting all over your clothes. It really helps with intentionality. So that's one of my favorites, and it's fun too. And you can really do it anytime. I mean, there's no limitations for that one. Tip number 9 is chew slowly and thoroughly, which of course, this is kind of why we do all of these tips, is to kind of slow down. But this one in particular, I know a lot of people have heard, I think it's like 32 bites, chews before you swallow, something like that. But essentially, there's no number I would suggest necessarily, but my favorite saying is drink your food and eat your beverages, which sounds silly, but essentially what that means is if you are chewing enough, then you are going to get your food to be a puree. So it's almost like you're drinking it once it gets to that point, right? And then as far as beverages go, so think of for me, it's hot chocolate. I love hot chocolate. So it has, some carbohydrates in there. So when you have it in your mouth, you don't want to just chug it and drink it and just let it go down without even leaving it in your mouth. So if you leave it in your mouth and almost chew it, kind of swish it in your mouth, you're actually getting all your enzymes to activate in your mouth. So salivary amylase is what breaks down carbs. So if you're a coffee drinker, this one's for you. If you're a hot chocolate drinker, this one's for you. Juice, things like that. Anything that has carbs in it helps to break it down. The other thing about swishing it around in your mouth is that you actually have taste buds on your cheeks, not just your tongue. So if you are only, doing a quick sip and letting it go down, then you're not fully experiencing all the deliciousness of whatever you're drinking, or even eating too. Like, it sounds weird to swish your food in your mouth, but it really can help. And this is kind of why when you drink, I know a lot of people do like wine tastings and things like that. You kind of do that, right? They kind of walk you through these steps of drinking mindfully. So same thing can go with food. And that's a really fun one. Now, tip number 10 is something that is so important. I feel like we've kind of lost as a society because of our quick pace lifestyle, and that's engaging your senses. Now, this means essentially noticing colors and textures and all the flavors that you're eating. And often we don't even care to look at that. We just kind of like, okay, this is what I usually get. I'm just going to eat it. And so I'm often someone, I just have always done this intuitively, is like I like to smell my food before I eat it. And I always kind of thought that was weird. Not a lot of people do that. But now that I am more educated, I know the reason I do that is actually not only just because I want to enjoy the smell first, but it actually starts the process of digestion. So we'll kind of get into that as well when we walk through a little mindful eating practice. But I think that tip is probably one of my favorites as far as really the benefit of that last benefit, which I mentioned, enhancing the enjoyment. But also, this next one, the last tip, is tip number 11, practice gratitude / set an intention. You could do both of these things. You could do one, you could do the other. But I think when we set an intention for our meal or our snack, it might look like, let's say, I want this food to nourish me, I want this food to heal me, I want this food to energize me, things like that. Fuel me for my workout, fuel me for my day, fuel me for my interview, whatever it is for you. That just kind of gives purpose to the food you're eating. And often that might help us eat a little healthier, because if we're choosing something less healthy, we probably know it's not going to fuel us as well for certain things. But also the gratitude practice is really great. You don't have to be religious, to practice this. It can just be, I'm grateful for whoever grew this food. I'm grateful for who transported this food. I'm grateful for whoever made this food, cooked it. Maybe that's yourself, and even more the reason to practice that, because we don't really practice gratitude in ourselves enough. I find that. So I think this tip can be so powerful and helpful, and it's easy to just do in your head really quickly before you eat as well. So the other, the last tip was a little bit harder you're not going to be able to fully do this mindful eating practice through the senses every single time you eat. So again, not all of these tips you're going to do every single day. You're not going to do this every single meal. It might be the first bite. You might choose one meal a day you do this for, one meal a week, but just trying to do it more often is going to be really helpful for you. And so I want to kind of walk through that practice of using those senses. So if you have a piece of food in front of you, you can use that. I like to kind of think of an orange, right? And of course, my mom brain made me forget my orange, and I was going to do that with you guys today. But even just imagining it's actually amazing how powerful our senses are. Even imagining it can start making your mouth water. So think about first looking at it, right? So for me, if it was the orange, I'd be looking at it, kind of just seeing the color, right? Or colors. If it's a meal, might have a lot of those. And then feeling it would be the next thing. So feeling the texture of it, like the rough skin or smooth skin, depending on the orange. And even the temperature, feel that too. Like if it was in the fridge, it would be cold. If it was on the counter, it would be room temp. If it's a hot meal, it's going to be warm. And then smelling it, this is where our digestion process starts. It doesn't start when we eat the food, it starts to smell the food, because that's when our salivary amylase, that enzyme in our saliva, is actually activated, especially if it's something that's you really like and it makes your mouth water. And that's actually a really good sign that you're going to digest that food really well. And so we want to awaken those taste buds by smelling it and then tasting it is, of course, the most enjoyable part, right? So taking a bite and taking a small bite and noticing small things about it. If it's a meal, you might even be able to pick up spices that are in the meal. If it's, a citrus fruit, you might be able to taste the sweetness and the, citrus flavor of it. And even just the texture of it while it's in your mouth, you might notice is different than the texture, the outside of the fruit. And then the last thing is sounds silly, but listen, hear the sounds that the food makes. If it's crunchy like chips, it's going to make that crunchy noise. If it's, fruit, you might just hear like apples, you might hear a little crunch there. You might not hear much at all, depending what you're eating, but it's really good to try to implement all your senses here because it can make it so much more enjoyable for you. So I encourage you, if there was one thing today that allowed you to connect and relate and you resonated with, try that one thing. If there were multiple things, jot them down. Reach out if you have any questions about how to do this or how to implement them. But I am really hoping that this helps you eat more mindfully and improve your relationship with food. Until next time.
The Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center is located in Newport, Rhode Island. Our mission is to nourish, educate, and support Newport County residents to improve their social, economic, and physical well-being. For more information, please visit our website at mlkccenter.org. We'd love you to come volunteer, or if you need help, please turn to us and we'll be there to support you.
Adoption Rhode Island is a private nonprofit organization dedicated to improving outcomes for children, youth, and young adults in foster care by finding families or other permanent connections. We also provide support service, counseling services for this population. If you're interested in learning more about adoption from foster care or about our support services, please contact us at 401-865-6000 or visit our website at adoptionri.org.
The Newport Navy Choristers is a local choral group associated with the military that raises money for local 501c3 organizations. If you would like to join us on our journey and learn more about us or become one of our sponsors for a concert to benefit your organization, please visit us at www.newportnavychoristers.org.
Hi, my name is Conley Zani, and I'd love to tell you about the CFP Arts, Wellness, and Community Center. We have a wealth of activities. No matter what you're into, there is something for you. You want to learn to draw? We've got an art class. You want to learn to dance or pump some iron? We've got fitness classes. Maybe you want community. Try some bridge. Check out our website. There are so many options, and we hope to see you very soon.